Stepping up to the couch, it's Brian, who led the league last season in cracked screens. But with his new athletic case, it looks like that won't be the case. Touchdown, Brian!
In the 1996 NBA offseason, the LA Lakers signed Shaquille O'Neal, stealing him away from the Orlando Magic in the prime of his career. Shaq was one of the best players at his position and in the NBA. He had just come off of a season averaging 26, 11, and 2 blocks on 57% shooting. On top of adding Shaq, the Lakers traded for the draft rights of high school sensation Kobe Bryant. Both would become some of the greatest players of all time, so naturally these guys would be very successful as a duo, three-peating and becoming arguably the most dominant duo of all time. Now, how this duo came together often gets glossed over, just like how I did in the intro. Broken down to simply the Lakers signed Shaq, the Lakers drafted Kobe. Getting Kobe really was as simple as is advertised. Before getting Shaq, the Lakers wanted to move their previous starting center, Vlade Divac, to clear up cap space, so they traded him to the Charlotte Hornets, who needed a starting center, in exchange for Kobe. Kobe had also told the Charlotte management that he refused to play for the Hornets, saying he'd play in Italy before playing in Charlotte, even if it meant not living his NBA dream. Ouch. So the addition of Kobe was pretty standard, starting center for a high school prospect that had a lot of doubts around him, but he had potential. As for Shaq, well, that didn't come as simple as Kobe did. The Lakers managed to snag Shaq away from the Orlando Magic. They were able to do this because of what was negotiated in the 1996 NBA lockout. There are not many fuck-ups in NBA history worse than the fuck-up by the Orlando Magic in the 1996 offseason. The Magic had one hell of a team. They had a 23-year-old superstar center in Shaq who had just came off of a season averaging 26 and 11, a 24-year-old star guard in Penny Hardaway who had just averaged 22 and 7 on 51% shooting, that along with Horace Grant as a great starting power forward, Dennis Scott who was a knockdown three-point shooter, Nick Anderson who was a great 3-and-D player. In the 95 season, the team had beaten the Chicago Bulls who were at a disadvantage with Jordan being rusty. So they lost to the young Magic. They made the finals and, well, got dicked on by the Houston Rockets. But a team this young making the finals and beating a Jordan-led team, rusty or not, was impressive as hell. The team was very similar to the 2012 OKC team, and like that 2012 OKC team, this team was decimated by the decisions by the front office. Except instead of trading a James Harden level player, they made a move equivalent to letting Kevin Durant leave. Their franchise player in Shaq was only 23. He had another decade of dominance left in him, and the Magic let that go. Here's how. The Orlando Magic started off their attempt to bring back Shaq by lowballing him. Shaq was coming off of his rookie contract and was looking to get a big paycheck. The Magic could offer him more money than anyone because they had his bird rights, and because of the 96 lockout negotiations, there was also no maximum salary that they could give to Shaq. They could have just thrown a blank check at Shaq and moved on, but they did not do that. The Magic initially offered Shaq a 4-year, $54 million deal, $13.5 million a year when he wanted something more like $20 million a year. Guys like Juwan Howard and Alonzo Mourning got 7-year, $100 million plus contracts. Alonzo and especially Howard were below Shaq's talent level, so you can imagine why this offer was insulting to Shaq. But this low ball was just the initial offer. There was some more negotiation to be had. But rather than negotiate with Shaq further, the Magic instead decided to criticize Shaq's game. They criticized his defense and his rebounding. Now, Shaq wasn't the greatest defender in the world. His first couple of seasons he was good because he was very, very athletic, but he had put on pounds so that he could be more dominant inside, and he sacrificed his defense a little bit in that regard. If you want to criticize that, sure, maybe, I guess. It's a bit of a nitpick, but whatever. Rebounding though, I think management might have been legitimately high during negotiations. Shaq was coming off of a season averaging 11 rebounds a game. He averaged 12.5 rebounds a game for his entire career with the Magic thus far. 11 rebounds a game was 6th in the NBA that season. Even if he was an average rebounder, Shaq was already a 3-time All-NBA performer, a scoring champion, and he had just been 2nd in MVP voting the season prior. This disregard for that, mixed with the criticism, really showed just how little the Magic appreciated Shaq. The final point that the Orlando Magic made was that they would need the extra cap space down the line to re-sign Shaq's co-star Penny Hardaway. This was very insulting to Shaq, who is a significantly better player than Penny. Shaq also didn't really care for Hardaway, as he apparently made it a habit to beef with every backcourt player he ever played with, besides for Dwayne Wade. So the Magic insulted Shaq in negotiations. The final straw was when the management put out a poll for Magic fans, asking them if they thought Shaq was worth a $100 million contract. 90% of Magic fans said that he wasn't worth the contract. So not only did management piss off Shaq, but so did the Orlando Magic fan base. This led to Shaq and his agent looking for other suitors. The Knicks, Pistons, Hawks, and Miami Heat were some of the teams that he looked at, but he ultimately decided to join the LA Lakers. See, Jerry West, the GM of the Lakers at the time, was looking at what was happening in Orlando and saw an opportunity to bring the Lakers their first bit of success since the Showtime era. The first thing he did was trade Vlade Divac to save money, which is an undersold fact, I think. I mean, Kobe was one of the greatest players ever, and the Lakers essentially got him in a cap dump deal. Not that they didn't have hopes for him in the future, but that trade happened essentially for the sake of cap space, which is just kind of interesting. Anyways, the Lakers were able to offer Shaq a 7-year, $95 million deal. A little short of the $100 million that he was looking for, but Jerry pitched Shaq on the idea that he could put his name in with other great Laker big men, such as Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem. Shaq could put his name up there with those guys while playing for the NBA's biggest market and the NBA's most storied franchise. So Shaq ended up with the Lakers, despite the Magic eventually offering Shaq a deal that was very close to what Shaq wanted. The only difference being the year where he had an opt-out option being year 4 instead of year 3. Now what you're probably thinking is, well, why didn't the Orlando Magic match the Lakers deal? If they'd offered something similar, they could have just matched it since they were willing to do a similar deal anyways. Well, here's the thing. Yes, Shaq was coming off of his rookie deal, but he wasn't a restricted free agent. Any other offseason, Shaq would have been a restricted free agent, but he wasn't one this year. Shaq was an unrestricted free agent because of the 1996 NBA lockout and the collective bargaining agreement. The 1996 lockout was a very brief lockout. It only lasted a few days before the 1996 free agency period began. There was some big deal about the league's new TV deal and what percentage of that money would go to player salaries. That's why there was no max salaries for players this offseason, as I believe I mentioned earlier. If I didn't, well then, yikes. That's not what's important though. What's important is that in this lockout, the restricted free agency clause was eliminated, meaning that there would be no more restricted free agents. Shaq was coming off of his deal, a free man able to do whatever the hell he wanted, which was unprecedented at the time. That's what made Orlando's behavior in the negotiations seem so bizarre. They were treating Shaq as if he was a restricted free agent when he wasn't. But the thing that interests me about this isn't how much the Magic fucked this up, though this video does seem to emphasize that. What interests me is how small of a window the Lakers ended up having to get Shaq, and how perfectly things lined up for the Lakers to create a dynasty with Shaq. The restricted free agency clause came back in the 98 offseason, so there was a 2-year window where this was possible. This video is titled The Untold Story of How Shaq Became a Laker, or some shit like that. And the reason it's titled that is, well, this part of the story for the LA Lakers franchise feels kind of untold. One, despite Shaq's incredible free agent story, it's not talked about that much. He was one of the biggest superstars to ever leave his team in free agency, which was especially uncommon in his time. And two, this 2-year period of a small change led to one of the best duos and one of the biggest dynasties of all time. One rule change in a couple-day-long lockout completely changed the landscape of the NBA as we know it. It created a Lakers dynasty that we will remember forever and created the greatest duo, in my opinion, of all time, and one of the best teams of all time. Just wanted to share this story because it was really interesting. I initially heard part of it on a Dom 2K video. I'll link that in the description. And I also got some help from him finding an article for some research on this, which I really appreciated. That's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.
I dare you play your cards, boy, you bet I'm a trendsetter too. Fire when the strobe hits you.
That's it, Brian?